Well, One America's John Hines caught up with Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal after this morning's heated debate over the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch. Here's more from Capitol Hill.
I think by the end of the week we'll change the rules, and going forward you will not be allowed to filibuster any judge, circuit court, district court, or Supreme Court. That one party can do it. Over time it will make the judiciary more ideological, and it will put more pressure on Senate seats.
You made a comment about the Bar Association, some comments about their rating. You brought that up. Talk about that, sir.
Well, you know, this idea that this guy is somehow flawed in terms of how he judges. 5,000 people were interviewed by the American Bar Association. They did a 900-page report. They gave him the highest rating you could give of anybody to be nominated for the Supreme Court, well qualified. Glowing statements about his judicial temperament, the way he judges. He's had 2,700 cases decided, one reversal. So when I hear my Democratic colleagues pick one case or another case, or to suggest that he's been somehow evasive in answering questions, falls on deaf ears, because the man they're talking about, the ABA, apparently did not interview.
You said you hate the fact that this is happening.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's just going to make the judiciary more ideological. If you don't need one Democratic or Republican vote in the future to get somebody on the court. So the hardest of the hard inside the caucuses will determine who the judges are. And it puts a lot of pressure on sort of moderate members of the Republican Democratic Party to weed out the unqualified or the extremely ideological. If you don't have to reach across the aisle, you're going to get a more ideological product. And as to the Senate itself, it's going to change how we campaign, because every open Senate seat can determine whether or not potentially you have enough votes to put somebody on the court. So it's going to make every Senate seat a referendum on the Supreme Court.
Sir, you talked about how you voted for some Obama nominees. Were you trying to persuade your colleagues with your remarks?
I was trying to remind them that I understand how tough this can be. You said a lot of nice things about me, and the standard I apply to Sotomayor and Kagan, I just ask you to apply to Gorsuch, and if you do, you'll vote yes. Because I understood they would judge the way they're judging philosophically. I understood they were in the mold of a progressive judge, but they were extremely well qualified. I didn't find either one of them to be character flawed. That this idea that Sotomayor somehow was a racist because of one speech was a joke, and the idea that Elena Kagan hated the country because she was part of, you know, pushing the ROTC unit at Harvard off campus made no sense in light of the way they lived their lives. So if you look at Judge Gorsuch in terms of his judicial temperament, his expertise as a judge, the way he does his business as a judge, he's extremely well qualified, as much as they are.
Why did Senator Feinstein go off about the Brown versus the Board non-answer that supposedly he gave?
That was bizarre to me. Do you think the ABA would recommend well qualified to somebody that had a hidden agenda regarding Brown versus Board of Education? Here's what Judge Gorsuch said about Griswold and Brown. They're the precedents of the nation. They were rightly decided. But the point he's trying to make is I just can't opine about events in the world. If somebody brings a case in controversy to the Supreme Court, first we have to decide, will we accept that case? He found it impossible to believe that a politician somewhere would pass a law outlawing contraception between married adults, and that the Supreme Court would review that case if it did pass. So he was being very honest about outcomes in terms of the likelihood of changing these precedents, but he was being consistent about being a judge. I don't want to go down the road of telling you the ones I like and I don't. I'm going to tell you that they're well-settled, well-decided cases, extremely important pillars of precedent in America, but there's a way you decide cases. As to Roe v. Wade, there will be challenges protecting the rights of the unborn. There will be challenges to how far Roe goes, and I hope he will keep an open mind about that issue. The bottom line is to say that he wishes for the good old days of Plessy versus Ferguson, I find really offensive. I never said anything like that about Sotomayor and Kagan, who had pretty liberal views on situations.
We'll see by the end of the week whether there is a destruction of the rules and, in some ways, the Senate as we've known it for so many years. I think a number of my colleagues have grave misgivings about the destructive repercussions for decades to come if the nuclear option is invoked. The approval of a Supreme Court justice ought to be by more than a razor-thin majority, because it's a lifetime appointment on the nation's highest court, one of 9 people who shapes real lives and determines whether our water is clean, our workers are safe, our consumers are protected, and women have health care. And that's why I think that the Republican leadership ought to rethink whether it's willing to completely destroy a rule that has really compelled mainstream nominees to be approved.